Chapter 363, Family Savings. Teacher Lin noticed Dong Huang and Feng Lin's little interaction and breathed a sigh of relief. When Dong Huang joined the class midway through the semester, she worried that it would be difficult for her to integrate with her classmates. Fortunately, she has become friends with her deskmate. This way, it will be easier for her to make friends with other classmates. Unlike Dong Huang's smooth introduction, Dong Li was laughed at as soon as he entered the class. The reason is that most of the 6th grade students are children from Zai village. There are only 9 students in this class, including Dong Li, and he is the youngest one. When they saw him carrying the new bag, they were jealous. Although they didn't know him well, his classmates didn't like him due to the gossip the villagers often said to their children. He stood in front of the class, looked at his classmates calmly and said, "Hello everyone, my name is Dong Li. I'm here to study and I don't want to be disturbed unless necessary. Thank you." The teacher was stunned after hearing what he said. He looked at Dong Li and said, "Classmate Dong, it's great to have a passion for learning, but you also need to make friends with your classmates." Dong Li turned to look at the teacher and asked, "Why?" Looking into his clear eyes, the teacher was speechless. He didn't know how to explain to him the importance of connection and making friends because it was common sense and no one had ever asked him about it before. Seeing that the teacher could not answer him, Dong Li calmly added, "Teacher, although it is important to establish connections and make friends, I don't think any of my classmates can benefit me. Judging from their attitudes of learning and their mindsets, they won't be able to leave this village. I have my own goals and ambitions, so rather than waste time interacting with them, I prefer to read more and improve myself." The teacher listened to what he said and thought he was right. He glanced at his other students who had ugly expressions and sighed. In the end, he did not persuade Dong Li anymore and said, "Classmate Dong, you can sit at the table by the window." It was exactly what Dong Li said. Most of his students stopped coming to school after the last semester. Their parents have made it clear that they will only send their sons until they can read or write simple words. Since they don't have a connection that allows them to go to university, they don't want to waste money and time. They might as well let their children do farm work and earn more work points. The students wanted to embarrass Dong Li and ostracized him, but after seeing his cold attitude and his ugly words, they didn't think their plan would have any impact on him. In this case, they didn't bother to waste time with him. They just treated him like air, much to Dong Li's preference. In this atmosphere, Dong Li concentrated on absorbing all the knowledge taught by the teacher like a sponge. He didn't even bother to talk to his deskmate. At this time, Li Chenmo had returned home and saw his wife getting ready to go out. He walked up to her and asked, "Wife, do you want to go out?" Lu Jiu tied up her hair, showing her fair neck, and nodded. "Husband, you are back. I'm going to send the money to my sister-in-law and Magia." After hearing his wife's words, Li Chenmo walked up to her, bent down and kissed her on the cheek. "Ride slower and be careful on the road. I won't go with you today. My brothers and I now need to separate the pigs." Lu Jiu counted the time and found that more than a month had passed since they brought back the 4 piglets from the brigade. Under normal circumstances, pigs are ready for breeding when they are 5 to 7 months old, but with good feed, they may be ready to breed as early as 3 months old. Since their pigs are raised for slaughter, they need to separate them. Lu Jiu nodded to him and said, "Okay." Not long after, Li Chen's and Li Lingyun came over and went to the pig pen with Li Chenmo. After locking the door, Lu Jiu rode her bicycle to Li Chen's house. When she arrived, Zhang Dongmei was drying clothes in the front yard. Seeing her coming, Zhang Dongmei said with a smile, "Third sister-in-law, you are here." Lu Jiu parked her bicycle and said, "Sister-in-law, I hope I didn't disturb you." "You came just in time. I've just finished my work. Come in and have a cup of tea." After she hung all the clothes on the bamboo poles, neither of them stayed in the living room but went to the bedroom. She closed the door, poured a cup of tea for Lu Jiu, placed it on the small table on the kang bed and asked, "Third sister-in-law, are you here to deliver money today?" Lu Jiu took a sip of tea and nodded. She put the teacup on the small table, took out her purse and said, "Sister-in-law, after deducting the cost, we made 3,550 yuan from selling snacks yesterday. Including the previous 2 days, we made a total of 9.895 yuan. After counting the money, she handed it to Zhang Dongmei and said, "Sister-in-law, this is your share. A total of 1,485 yuan. Although she knew their business was profitable, it was the first time she had made so much money in 3 days. Even for factory workers, the monthly salary is only 30 yuan. This amount is equivalent to 64 months' salary of a factory worker. Thinking about all the money she had earned since helping her third sister-in-law and how her family's life was getting better day by day, Zhang Dongmei was extremely grateful to her. At this moment, in just 27 days, their family already has savings of more than 15,000 yuan. Zhang Dongmei took the money and said, "Thank you, third sister-in-law. If it weren't for you and the third brother, I wouldn't be able to earn so much money in less than a month." Hearing her words, Lu Jiu smiled and said casually, "Sister-in-law, this might sound a little crazy, but I had a dream a month ago. In a few years, we may be able to do business openly and own a house privately. Even if this is just a dream, we should save money for the future. Maybe my dream will really come true. By then, we will need a lot of money to buy a house and start a business." Hearing this, Zhang Dongmei chuckled and said, "Sister-in-law, I really hope your dream can come true. It would be great if our children and grandchildren could live a better life than us." After hearing her words, Lu Jiu just smiled and said nothing. She had already hinted to her sister-in-law. Whether they can buy a house in the future depends on them. After chatting for a while, she left and went to her parents' house. After seeing her off, Zhang Dongmei took out the jar hidden under her cabinet. Opening the jar, it was filled with the money she and her husband had earned for years. She counted the money, put it back in the jar, and hid it again. There is a total of 16,302 yuan in the jar. Although she is not sure whether her third sister-in-law's dream will happen in the future, it is better to prepare in advance. She would save more money just in case. At Gao family's house, Su Anna was already awake, leaning on the pillow on the Kang bed in disbelief. Sitting in front of her was Grandma Gao. She looked at Su Anna's swollen, pale face and said, "Comrade Su, since you and De Gao have been discovered by the villagers in that kind of situation, I will accept you as my Gao family's daughter-in-law. You should have a good rest and recover soon. When your swelling and rash subsides, we will hold a wedding banquet for you. However, I will tell you now, my family will only give you a bride price of 10 yuan. Hearing her words, Su Anna was seething with anger. Not to mention Grandma Gao's words were degrading to her. By giving her a bride price of 10 yuan was simply a naked humiliation, a slap to her face. Not to mention Lu Jiu, who has received the highest bride price of several hundred yuan and a radio. Even an ordinary village woman will receive at least 30 yuan in bride price. As an educated youth, how could her bride price be lower than that of a village woman? But before she could say anything, Grandma Gao added, "If you refuse this marriage, you will go to jail. You'd better think about it carefully. You are 22 years old and can't earn many work points with your weak body. Although you have passed the marriage age, De Gao likes you. If you marry my De Gao, you won't have to worry about being an old maid and not having food to eat." After speaking, Grandma Gao left the room without even giving her a chance to speak. She was confident that Su Anna would agree to the marriage. After all, because of those rumors, her reputation was ruined, and no family was willing to accept her as their daughter-in-law. She had no choice but to marry De Gao. Humiliated and angry, Su Anna didn't even bother to fix her hair, put on her shoes, and rushed out of the house furiously. Just as Lu Jiu was on her way to her parents' house, Su Anna suddenly appeared from the opposite road, blocking her way. She was startled by her sudden appearance and almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, she managed to steady her bike without falling. Looking up, she saw Su Anna staring at her with red eyes. Her face was pale but covered in rashes. Looking at her embarrassed look, Lu Jiu frowned and said, "Su Anna, what are you doing? Do you know how dangerous it is if you suddenly appear?" Su Anna ignored her words, pointed at her and said angrily, "Lu Jiu, you bitch, you must have put those caterpillars into my room. Because of you, I was seen by everyone, and now the Gao family forced me to marry that despicable man." Lu Jiu frowned at her words and said, "I don't know what you are talking about. You'd better stop talking nonsense, otherwise I won't be polite to you. Stop pretending to be stupid. If it wasn't you, who else would do this?" Su Anna suddenly screamed. As a result of her screams, villagers came out of their homes to see what was going on. Even people sitting far away were attracted by her scream and came over to watch. When Liu Hua saw Su Anna arguing with Lu Jiu, she quickly turned around and ran to the Lu family's house. As a good friend, she must tell Wang Muxiao about this. Who doesn't know that Lu Jiu is physically weak? If she and Su Anna fight, she will definitely suffer. Therefore, she must find someone to deal with that vixen. She ran as fast as she could. Fortunately, it was not far from Lu's house, and she arrived in just 5 minutes. When she saw Wang Muxiao sunbathing in the front yard, she shouted, "Ah, Zyro, it's not good. Your sister-in-law is blocked by Su Anna and may be beaten." As soon as Wang Muxiao heard what her friends said, she threw the roasted sunflower seeds on her hand into the bowl, stood up and shouted with widened eyes, "What? That vixen dared to beat Jiu. Ah, Hua, lead the way. I must teach that vixen a hard lesson today, otherwise she might think that the Lu family is dead." When Chen Anwen heard her shout and rushed out of the kitchen, Wang Muxiao and Liu Hua were nowhere to be seen. She is cooking and Lu Wenfeng is sleeping, so she can't leave the house now. She was worried that something would happen to her second sister-in-law and her unborn child, so she quickly asked the neighbor's children to help find Lu Cheng. Meanwhile, Lu Jiu saw the villagers crowding around her and frowned. "Su Anna, I admit that I don't like you because you always disturb my husband, but I don't have the time to find so many caterpillars to hurt you. What's more, I'm already living a happy life now. Why should I risk my future by hurting you? Only a fool would do that." Hearing her words, Su Anna's eyes flashed with doubt, but she refused to believe it. If not Lu Jiu, who else would do this? The only person she can think of is Lu Jiu, so no matter what, she will put this blame on her head. Otherwise, she would be forced to marry De Gao. Originally, she wanted to slap Lu Jiu, but seeing so many people watching, she changed her mind. She must win the sympathy of the villagers and make them think Lu Jiu is a bully. She shook her head with a shock in her eyes, tears rolling from the corners of her eyes. She gripped the hem of her clothes and looked at Lu Jiu in disbelief. If others didn't know, they would think she was the victim and was bullied by the other party. Seeing Su Anna's white lotus-like appearance, the little figure in Lu Jiu's heart almost rolled her eyes out of its socket. Su Anna bit her lip and said tremblingly, "Lu Jiu, I know you hate me because of my relationship with Brother Chenmo, but you shouldn't." Before she finished speaking, Lu Jiu raised her hand and said, "Stop." Because of her interruption, Su Anna choked on her saliva. While she was coughing, Lu Jiu looked at her and the crowd while saying, "Su Anna, Li Chenmo is my legal husband. Please don't call him so intimately. My husband doesn't even know you, so where did you get that confidence to utter those shameless words? Are you planning to keep bothering my husband and plan to destroy my marriage?" Hearing her words, Su Anna was angered and wanted to refute her words. But before she could speak, Lu Jiu raised her hand to interrupt her again. "If you have a brain problem, you should go to the hospital for treatment. Don't use your delusions and mental illness to bother and hurt others." Su Anna was so angry that she could only stammer, "Lu Jiu." Seeing that she wanted to refute, Lu Jiu interrupted her for the third time and said sharply, "Su Anna, Li Chenmo is my man. I don't care what disease you have, but stay away from my man. If I see you harassing my husband again, don't blame me for being heartless and report you to the officers." After speaking, she looked at the onlookers and said, "I believe everyone knows that my husband and I have been in love for so many years. Now, I have clearly warned Su Anna. So if she is still trying to seduce my husband in the future and be beaten by me, I hope everyone can become my witness." As soon as she finished speaking, Aunt Wang said, "I will testify for you. This kind of woman deserves to be beaten most." As an educated youth, not only did she not reform herself, she also dared to seduce a married man. If it had been before, she would have been beaten long ago and drowned in a pig cage. That vixen deserves to be beaten. Jiu, if she dares to harass your husband again, just tell us and we will definitely seek justice for you," Aunt Su added while patting her chest. "I said instead of waiting for her to make trouble, why not report her now? On the one hand, she and De Gao were caught naked, and on the other hand, she seduced a married man and wanted to destroy other people's marriages by spreading rumors. This kind of woman, it's better to send her to jail to prevent her creating ruckus every day," another aunt added while glaring at Su Anna. For married women, Su Anna is the type of woman they hate most. Just because she's a little bit good-looking and has a good family background, she feels that every man belongs to her. Did she think those men's wives were dead, or was she a goddess that every man would worship? Listening to their series of words, Lu Jiu raised the corners of her mouth, but with her lowered head, no one saw her subtle smile. When the villagers saw her, they only found her very pitiful. As Li Chenmo's legal wife, she was confronted by Su Anna in public. This is tantamount to humiliating her in public and tainting her husband's reputation. Because of their rich imagination, the villagers' hatred of Su Anna intensified. As a result, their insulting words became more and more severe. As someone who grew up in the city and was pampered by her family, Su Anna had never faced this kind of situation and felt scared. She looked at the villagers with hatred and fear in her eyes. She bit her pale lips and pointed at the villagers with trembling fingers. If her face wasn't swollen and covered in rashes, people might still think she was a frail beauty. But with her current appearance, her beauty is not visible at all. Even the men who once pursued her thought she was ugly. You are going too far," she said while sobbing. Lu Jiu stood there, calmly watching Su Anna's one-man show. She thought the villagers would drown her out with their words, just like how they cursed the original soul before. Unexpectedly, Wang Muxiao strode over so suddenly, pulled Su Anna's hand, and slapped her without even saying a word. The sound of the slap was crisp and loud. With just one slap from her, Su Anna was thrown to the ground and the corner of her lip was torn. Blood seeped from the corner of her torn lips, and her already swollen face became more swollen and turned red from the slap. not to mention the villagers. Even Lu Jiu was startled by Wang Muxiao's sudden arrival and slap. Before everyone could recover from the shock, Wang Muxiao already sat on Su Anna's stomach. She restricted Su Anna's hands and movements by clamping her legs on her body and began to slap her without stopping. Pa. The slapping sound echoed one after another, sending shivers down the spines of the onlookers. Seeing Wang Muxiao beating Su Anna like a mad woman, they couldn't help but shudder. While slapping her, Wang Muxiao said angrily, "Vixen, how dare you bully my sister-in-law? I've already warned you to stay away from Juyu and her husband before. Did you take my words as farts? Since you can't understand human words, I'll teach you a lesson today until you understand human words." With Wang Muxiao sitting on her body, Su Anna couldn't move at all. What's more, her hand was restricted by Wang Muxiao's leg, so she could only kick her legs aimlessly and scream, "Wang Muxiao, you crazy woman, let me go." Hearing this, Wang Muxiao did not stop but increased her strength instead and said angrily, "Crazy woman. Since you say I am a crazy woman, I won't let you down. I'll let you see how crazy I can get." Pa. Although he has been doing nothing these past few months while nurturing her pregnancy, Wang Muxiao's strength cannot be underestimated at all. Su Anna couldn't resist at all and could only accept all her slaps. By the time everyone came to their senses, Su Anna's face was already swollen like a pig. Not to mention her beauty, even her parents may not recognize her now. Although they felt refreshed when they saw Wang Muxiao beating Su Anna, they also knew that they should stop her. Otherwise, she might have killed the other party. But the question is, who dares to stop her now? If they are not careful, they may be beaten by Wang Muxiao. What's more, Liu Hua is still standing there guarding her. Who dares to go against this pair? Fortunately, when Su Anna began to lose consciousness, Lu Cheng rushed over, pulled his wife up, and hugged her tightly. "Wife, stop fighting." Wang Muxiao's chest heaved as she pointed at Su Anna and said, "Husband, let me go. Today I must give this vixen a beating. She actually dares to humiliate our Juyu in public and seduce the Lu family's son-in-law. Does she think the Lu family is dead?" After saying that, she rushed to Su Anna again. Fortunately, Lu Cheng hugged her tightly, so she couldn't go over and beat Su Anna again. Lu Chen was afraid that something would happen if he let go of his wife, so he said, "Wife, calm down, you are pregnant. If you fight with her, what will happen if you are hit by her?" After hearing his words, everyone remembered that Wang Muxiao was pregnant, and her pregnancy is still at a fragile stage, as it is just more than 3 months. Looking at Su Anna, who lay on the ground unmoving, they trembled all over and looked at Wang Muxiao with fear clear in their eyes. She could beat her to this point when she was pregnant. One can imagine what would have happened if she hadn't been pregnant. When they came to this conclusion, their eyes looked at Lu Cheng with pity. Marrying a tigress as his wife, his life must not be easy. After hearing her husband's words, Wang Muxiao finally stopped. She took a deep breath to calm down her emotions. After that, her eyes suddenly turned red and her expressions changed faster than turning the page. She threw herself into Lu Cheng's arms and said aggrievedly, "Husband, she bullied me. My hands hurt." Lu Cheng looked at his wife's red palms and said with a frown, "Wife, didn't I tell you not to get into a fight again?" The villagers heard his words and thought he would scold his wife, but his next words immediately choked them up. "Look how red your hands are. If you want to hit someone, you can tell me. I'll fight them for you. You are very weak now. What if something happens to you or our child in your belly?" Looking at his distressed expression and hearing his words, everyone had the same thought at this moment. "Lu Cheng, you are shameless." Even Lu Jiu was speechless by her second brother and second sister-in-law's shamelessness. She glanced at everyone and found that no one had any intention of reporting her second sister-in-law, and then she breathed a sigh of relief. Not long after, De Gao ran over and rushed to Su Anna. "Anna, what happened to you?" After listening to his words, a villager said, "I say, De Gao, you should keep a close eye on your woman. Don't let her come out to seduce other people's husbands and look for trouble. If one day she has an affair, what will you do? You will wear a big green hat then." As soon as the villager finished speaking, everyone burst out laughing and looked at him with meaningful eyes. At first, De Gao felt distressed when he saw Su Anna's situation, but when he heard the villagers laughing at him, he felt ashamed. He quickly pulled Su Anna up from the ground and carried her back. As he walked away, he muttered, "Shameless woman, let's see how I teach you a lesson when we get home." As a man, what he values most is his face and dignity. So when he was ridiculed by the villagers for being a cuckold, he couldn't accept it and blamed her in his heart. Grandma Gao always told De Gao and Zyro Gao that to make a woman obedient, they had to beat her until she learned her lesson. Women will only listen to them if they are beaten. Indulging them will only make them spoiled and dare to go against them, just like now. After they left, Lu Jiu looked at the villagers and said with a smile, "Everyone, thank you for upholding justice for me. I will visit you another day and thank you properly." When the villagers heard her words, their eyes suddenly lit up. Who doesn't know that Lu Jiu and her husband are very generous? When they got married, they gave the villagers who helped them with the wedding banquet a generous thank you gift. Not only does it look beautiful, but it also has cakes, snacks, and even candies. Well, this time they may also get some benefits. As long as they stand on her side, they will get good things. It's indeed better to side with the Li family and Lu family than the Gao family. Thinking of this, the villagers' faces were full of smiles. Everyone agreed that it was Su Anna's fault, and she deserved to be beaten so no one will report Wang Muxiao. After everyone dispersed, Lu Cheng walked back while Wang Muxiao sat on the back of Lu Jiu's bicycle as they returned to the Lu house. When they walked into the front yard, Chen Anwen rushed over and asked with concern, "Second sister-in-law Jiu, how are you?" Wang Muxiao patted her chest and said proudly while laughing, "Eldest sister-in-law, don't worry, I'm fine. It's that vixen who is not fine at all." Chen Anwen frowned and couldn't help but remind her, "Second sister-in-law, you are too reckless. You are pregnant now, how can you fight with others once every few days? You should think more about the health of your unborn child and yourself are." "Eldest sister-in-law, I understand, but this vixen has gone too far. If I don't teach her a lesson, she won't know that our Lu family is still alive, and no one can bully Jiu, Wang Muxiao said with anger while clenching her fists. Seeing that her second sister-in-law was getting angry again, Lu Jiu said quickly, "Eldest sister-in-law, second sister-in-law, I'm here to give you money. Let's go inside and talk." As soon as she heard about money, Wang Muxiao's eyes lit up and she forgot about Su Anna instantly. "All right, let's go inside." Seeing his wife's excited look, Lu Cheng shook his head and said, "Wife, I still have some work in the field. You stay at home obediently and don't go out again. If mother knew you were fighting again, I wouldn't be able to save you this time." Wang Muxiao waved her hand and said impatiently, I know, go do your work and come back earlier." After making sure his wife was fine, Lu Cheng finally left home. In Wang Muxiao's bedroom, Lu Wenfeng was sleeping soundly, unaware that her mother had just come back from trashing someone so badly. Sitting on the Kang bed, Lu Jiu took out her pouch from her clothes and counted the money. She handed the money to Wang Muxiao and Chen Anwen and said, "Sister-in-law, yesterday we made 4,925 yuan from selling snacks. After deducting the cost of ingredients, we made 3,550 yuan. Previously, Pan Majia and my eldest sister-in-law have agreed to accept 15% of the shares, so I will give you two the same shares as them. You each earned 532 yuan and 50 cents. I rounded up to 535 yuan, she added. Wang Muxiao and Chen Anwen looked at the pile of money in front of them with wide eyes. This was the first time they had seen so much money. Wang Muxiao looked at her first pot of gold and asked in disbelief, "Jiu, this? Are you sure we can earn this much in one day? You didn't lie to us, right?" Lu Jiu knew that although her second sister-in-law loved money, she was not a greedy person. So she took out a piece of paper from the space, using her sleeve as a cover, and said, "Second sister-in-law, I didn't lie to you. This is the price list of the items we sell." Chen Anwen took the price list and looked at it. When she saw how expensive the items were, she was stunned. After reading the price list, she gave it to Lu Jiu and said, "Jiu, I didn't expect wild honey and dried mushrooms to be so expensive in that place. Eldest sister-in-law, the price is high because the quality is good and the rarity. If the quality is bad, no one will buy it." Hearing what she said, Wang Muxiao understood and said, "So, that's why you are willing to use those expensive ingredients." "Sisters-in-law, I have already received the pre-order for tomorrow. I wonder if both of you can come and help me again tonight," Lu Jiu asked. "As long as you don't find us troublesome, we will be happy to help you," Chen Anwen said with a smile. "We can make so much money all thanks to you, so of course we will help you," Wang Muxiao added with a smile. After they chatted for a while, Lu Jiu left the Lu family and returned to her home. In Gao's house, De Gao pushed Su Anna into his bedroom and said, "You bitch, I saved your life, is this how you repay me?" Su Anna was pushed down onto the Kang bed and exclaimed from the pain, "Ah." She raised her head, stared at him and said, "How dare you say you saved my life? Aren't you the one who plotted against me?" De Gao was angered by her words, pointed at her and asked, "Su Anna, what did you say? If it wasn't because I liked you, do you think I would bother to save you that day, Haha, how dare you say that you like me? How shameless. I would rather be strung to death than be saved by you. Even if I go to prison, I will not marry you. You should take a good look at yourself. Not to mention you have no money and are lazy. With your disgusting face, do you think any girl will be willing to marry you? Suanna sneered. De Gao was so angry that he was breathing heavily. You. What about me? Everyone knows you are a lazy, ugly, lecherous person. Only a blind and stupid woman would be willing to marry you, Suanna shouted angrily. De Gao's eyes turned red with anger after hearing her words and raised his hand to slap her. Seeing him raise his hand, Suanna closed her eyes and covered her head with her hands for fear of being beaten, but after a while the expected pain did not come. She opened her eyes and saw De Gao suppressing his anger and putting down his trembling hands. Although Grandma Gao always told him and his brother that to make a woman obedient, he had to beat her, but he just couldn't bear to beat Suanna when he saw how badly her wound was after being beaten by Wang Muxeo. Even though he was greedy for her body and money, he still felt heartbroken when he saw her in pain yesterday. He was also afraid that something would happen to her, so he guarded her all night while she was unconscious. But when she woke up, instead of thanking him, she went to find someone else's wife to argue, embarrassing him. But at this moment, being looked down upon by her, he still couldn't bear to hit her. It seems he does have feelings for her. When this thought flashed through his mind, De Gao clenched his fists and said, "We will hold our wedding banquet as soon as possible. Stay at home obediently and recuperate." After saying that, he left the room and locked the door from the outside to prevent her from going out and creating trouble for him and herself again. Suanna heard the sound of locking and rushed to the door. She slammed the door hard and shouted, "De Gao, let me out. You bastard, I don't want to marry you, let me out." Because the sound of the knocking was too loud, Grandma Gao got angry and cursed, "You bitch, if you dare to shout again, let's see how I deal with you." Hearing Grandma Gao's words, Suanna remembered what happened when Zyro Yiking was locked up by Mother Yang. She was afraid of being beaten by Grandma Gao and did not dare to make any more noise. She bit her nails and walked to the Kang bed to sit down. After a while her eyes lit up and she muttered, "That's right, Zyro Yiguan still owes me a favor. As long as I ask him to help me, I don't have to marry that bastard." Thinking of this, she breathed a sigh of relief. Since she needs to go out to contact him, she shouldn't go against De Gao for the time being. She could see that De Gao had some feelings for her, so as long as she acted coquettishly, he would definitely listen to her and let her go to the county town. When the time comes, she will send a telegram to Zyro Yiguan. After making a plan, she said to herself, "I need to be patient for the time being." Not long after Li Chenmo came back from the pig pen, Lu Jiu arrived at her house. As she locked her bike, she saw her husband hurriedly coming out of the house. Seeing his anxious look, she thought something had happened. She walked over to him and asked, "Husband, what's wrong?" As soon as Li Chenmo heard his wife's voice, he rushed over and checked her from head to toe. After confirming that his wife was not injured, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Wife, I heard Suanna was looking for you. Did she hurt you?" Lu Jiu shook her head and said, "Husband, I'm fine. Before Suanna could do anything to me, my second sister-in-law came over." Hearing her words, Li Chenmo heaved a long sigh of relief and said, "Fortunately, nothing happened to you." She knew that her husband was worried about her, so she said, "Husband, don't worry, even if I am alone, Suanna can't hurt me." Although he knew that his wife had learned Tai Chi in her previous life, she only learned Tai Chi for physical fitness and had never used it for self-defense. As a black belt in martial arts and Taekwondo, it would be better for him to go out with her and guard her. After making the decision, he stopped continuing the topic and said, "As long as you are all right, wife, I'm hungry." After hearing her husband's words, Lu Jiu looked at the sky and found that the sun had risen above their heads. It was indeed time for lunch. Since the weather is hot, she likes to eat in her own space. But after today's commotion, some villagers still have their attention on her. Therefore, it is better not to eat in her space. The weather isn't too hot today, so it's okay to have a meal in the living room. All she had to do was put a basin of ice near the window to cool the room temperature down. As the breeze blows inward, the wind spreads the cold air from the ice to the room. To cope with the hot weather, Lu Jiu cooked herbal chicken soup, vegetable and shrimp rice paper rolls, spicy and sour potato shreds, crispy Thai chili fish, strawberry spinach salad and sweet potato quesadillas. For drinks, she prepared watermelon juice. For dessert, she prepared mung bean soup. When it was ready, she put it in a jar and placed it in her space's refrigerator. Now that her husband knows her space, Lu Jiu doesn't have to worry about him asking her where her materials come from, so she can cook whatever she wants and enjoy spring dishes. While she was cooking, Li Chenmo helped her wash the pots and pans. When the food was ready, he he brought it to the living room in the backyard. Their house is a courtyard house with 2 living rooms, so it was very convenient for them. Usually they will use the front living room because it is larger, but today it was just the 2 of them, and the back living room was closer to the backyard. Therefore, they don't have to worry about the villagers' eyes while they eat. During the meal, Lu Jiu told her husband what happened when Su Anna went to find her, and said, "Husband, I am going to send some candies and roasted nuts to thank the villagers." Li Chenmo knew that his wife wanted to bribe the villagers to side with them. In any case, it is true that Wang Muxiao beat Su Anna in public. If someone decided to report her, she would be taken away by the officers. Therefore, it is better to give the villagers some benefits and make them shut up. So when he heard his wife's words, he nodded and said, I will accompany you later." Lu Jiu smiled when she heard her husband's agreement. After lunch, the 2 went to the space to pack roasted nuts and candies into small bags, and then left the space. Knowing that Wang Muxiao likes to eat meat, they also prepared 2 kilograms of meat, 1 kilogram of brown sugar, 2 cans of milk powder, 2 cans of wild honey, and a bottle of oyster sauce to thank her. After locking the door, Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu left the house to give small gifts to thank the villagers. When the sun sets, the class is finally over, and the children rush home from the classroom. Walking out of the classroom, Dong Huang was holding Feng Lin's hand as they walked to the school gate to wait for her brother. At the same time, Dong Li packed up his things and walked out of the classroom. When he walked to the school gate, he saw Li Jingqian, Li Jingsu, and Lu Wenyi walking together. Although he was used to being alone, he was still a little envious when he saw them having a good relationship and talking happily as they walked. He also longs to have a friend. Unfortunately, no one wants to be friends with an orphan. While he was lost in thought, Li Jingsu noticed him and remembered that it was his 3rd uncle who registered the Dong siblings to school. Since his 3rd uncle is good to the Dong brother and sister, of course he must take good care of them at school. Thinking of this, he turned around, walked up to Dong Li and said, "Ah Li. My brother and I want to visit my 3rd uncle. Let's go back together." Hearing his words, Dong Li was taken aback and said, "There is no need, I will go back with my sister." Without giving him a chance to refuse, Li Jingqian put his hand on Dong Li's shoulder and said, "Brother, there is no need to be polite to us. Since you and your sister are close to my 3rd uncle, you are one of us. If you or your sister is being bullied, you have to tell us. Even if we can't win alone, we can win if we work as a team." Hearing his words, Dong Li was stunned for a moment, but before he could react, Lu Wenyi waved his small fist and added, "Brother Qian is right. Brother Li, I will help you fight too." Li Jingqian flicked his forehead and said, "Ziroi, please be aware of your small body. When we fight, you'd better stand aside and cheer for us. Otherwise, if you get injured, my 3rd uncle will definitely spank my bottom until it blossoms." Lu Wenyi was a little dissatisfied with Li Jingqian's words and said while pouting, "Brother Qian, don't underestimate me. At home, I take care of my younger brother and sister. I am very strong. I can carry a bucket of water with 2 hands." Li Jingqian felt funny when he heard what he said. Seeing his pouty little face, he nodded and said, Yes, our Ziroi is very strong, so please protect your brothers and sisters when we get bullied." Dong Li was stunned by their casual and intimate attitude. By the time he came to his senses, they had already arrived at the school gate. Seeing that his older brother was surrounded by the Li brothers and Lu Wenyi, Dong Huang rushed over. She stood in front of her brother, pushed them away and said, "You are not allowed to bully my brother." Li Jingqian was startled by her and was pushed away. After stabilizing himself, he looked at her and said, "Ziro Huang, we didn't bully your brother, we are friends are." After hearing his words, Dong Huang observed them and looked at the smallest Lu Wenyi. Although he is 1 year younger than her, he is a few centimeters taller than her because his family raised him well. The 2 looked at each other and Dong Huang asked, "Is what he said true?" Lu Wenyi nodded and said, I saw my little uncle sending you and your brother to school this morning. Brother Qian said that you and your brother are family members, so if anyone dares to bully you or bully Brother Lei, we will beat them." Dong Huang was still a little wary of them, but thinking that they were the nephews of Uncle Li and Aunt Li, she finally nodded and said, "Okay, then let's be friends." Dong Li stood behind his sister, patted her head and said, "Ziro Huang, it's time for us to go back. After finishing our homework, we have to collect pigweed." When Lu Wenyi heard this, he quickly raised his hand and said, "Brother Li, I also want to pick pigweed." Since the little aunt got married, they are no longer allowed to go to the foot of the mountain to pick pigweed. He rarely goes out to play, and mushrooms almost grow on his body as he stays at home all the time. Now, he finally had an excuse to hang out. With the Li siblings and the Dong siblings, he believed that his mother would allow him to go to the foothills. The last time he went there, he saw a lot of mushrooms. Xyrophan would be very happy if he could bring some back. After all, mushroom soup is her favorite. Dong Li thought for a while and said, "Okay, if your mother allows you to go, we will go together." Lu Wenyi nodded like a chicken pecking at rice and readily agreed. Since the Lu family was on the way from school to Li Chenmo's house, they sent Lu Wenyi home first and then walked to Li Chen's house. After Li Jingqian and Li Jingsu notified their mother, they took their homework and went to Li Chenmo's house with the Dong siblings. When they arrived, they saw Li Chenmo and Lu Jiyu picking pears and vegetables. When the Li brothers saw this, they said in unison, "Third uncle, third aunt." "Uncle Li, Aunt Li, we are back," Dong Li and Dong Huang said. Seeing them coming together, Lu Jiyu said, "All of you are here. Go wash your hands first. There is some mung bean soup in the kitchen. You can have it before doing your homework." Since Li Chenmo had already asked them to finish their homework before helping, Dong Li did not refuse and took her sister to the backyard to wash their faces, hands and feet. Seeing that the Dong siblings were so familiar and relaxed at their third uncle's house, the Li brothers looked at each other and followed them. While the children were drinking mung bean soup, Lu Jiyu and Li Chenmo had already finished gathering the vegetables and pears. She looked at the sky and said, "Husband, I'm going to prepare dinner." Li Chenmo wiped his wife's sweat with a towel and said, "Wife, take a rest first." Although she didn't feel tired, Lu Jiyu didn't want to worry her husband, so she nodded and said, "Okay, I'll get you some mung bean soup." MHMM. When she went to the kitchen to get some mung bean soup, Li Chenmo went to the backyard to wash up. When he walked to the living room, the children had finished drinking the mung bean soup and were doing homework. Li Chenmo sat down opposite them, glanced at their homework, and frowned. Judging from the current situation, it is impossible to have a high-quality book. Much of the knowledge imparted to students must follow government regulations and propaganda. No wonder the children can only do simple mathematics after reaching 6th grade, and their understanding ability is so poor. While he was lost in thought, Lu Jiyu came over with 2 bowls of mung bean soup. She put the bowl in front of her husband and asked, "Husband, what's wrong?" After coming back to his senses, Li Chenmo smiled and said, "I was thinking about their homework." Lu Jiyu sat down next to him and looked at the children's homework. When she saw that the quality of education in this era was so low, she understood what her husband was thinking. These children are arguably smarter than other children. They should have no problem learning the materials from their past lives. If she remembered correctly, there were several primary school books in her space. It's only a few, but it should be enough for them. She can give them summaries and teach them in her spare time. After considering the pros and cons, she looked at the children and said, "Before you go back, Aunt will give you a book. Bring it back and read it, okay?" The children were eager to learn. After listening to her words, they nodded and said with a smile, "Thank you, Auntie." After drinking the mung bean soup, Lu Jiyu went to her bedroom, while Li Chenmo was teaching the children. In the bedroom, she entered her own space and took out the primary school textbook. There are only some mathematics, physics, English, biology, and language books. She began to make a summary and write it down. For Lu Wenyi and Dong Huang, she gave them basic math and language books. For the Li brothers, she gave them 3rd grade math and language books, as well as a basic English book. As for Dong Li, she gave him math and language books for 4th grade students, as well the basic physics, English, and biology. Judging from how they did their homework just now, she already had a rough idea of their level. When she appeared in the bedroom again, it was already 10 minutes later. She wrote in her own space for a long time, but she didn't feel tired at all. Although she didn't know the reason, she didn't think much about it. Seeing her coming out with a stack of books, Li Chenmo took it from her hand and put it on the table. After she sat down, he rubbed her hand and said, "Wife, you should let me do this kind of thing." Lu Jiyu smiled and said, "It's okay, I don't feel tired at all." After hearing her words, Li Chenmo said nothing and just continued to massage his wife's hands. After 2 hours, the children finally packed up their things, carried a basket of food, and went home with their backpacks on their backs. After locking the doors, Lu Jiyu took her husband into her own space, took a hot bath, and had dinner. After eating, they went to the living room to read. In addition to textbooks, Lu Jiyu's space also has novels, which can at least provide some entertainment. After reading it, both of them went to bed. 10 hours later, Lu Jiyu woke up and went to prepare the pre-order tonight. In addition to snacks, due to the upcoming Qingming festival, there are more orders for cold food, wine, fruits, and vegetables than usual. Although she doesn't plan to sell tonic wine, she can still sell some fruit wine or rice wine. Without spiritual grass powder, the healing effect of fruit or rice wine is much lower than that of tonic wine, but due to its cheap price, the demand is higher. In addition, Lu Jiu also uses natural raw materials in her space to make handmade soaps, lipsticks, whitening creams, and some blushes. The maples in her space are also ready for sap extraction. Every 20 hours, a maple tree can produce 40 liters of maple sap, which can then be processed into 10 liters of maple syrup. There are now 2,000 maple trees in her space, so in 1 hour outside, her space can produce 60,000 liters of maple syrup. She opened the factory settings and set up maple syrup production. Each jar was filled with 250 ml of maple syrup. She will sell it for 50 yuan per jar. When Li Chenmo woke up, she had put everything into the bamboo basket. After freshening up, they left the space and waited for Zhang Dongmei and others to come over. At the same time, Dong Li and Dong Huang were collecting firewood at the foot of the mountain when they saw a familiar figure picking wild vegetables from behind. Seeing him, they walked over and shouted, "Uncle." Hearing their voices, Zyro Li turned around and asked with a smile, "What are you two doing here at this time? The sun has already set, and it will be dangerous to wander here at night. You'd better go back quickly." Dong Huang had a good impression of him and said with a smile, "Uncle, we are collecting firewood for Uncle Li. Are you picking wild vegetables?" Zyro Li nodded and said, "If you need more firewood, Uncle can help you pick it up." "Thank you, Uncle, but we have collected enough firewood today. Uncle, do you need help? We know a place where wild vegetables are hidden," Dong Li said. Zyro Li looked at the pathetic amount of wild vegetables in his basket and asked, "Can you share that place's location with me?" Dong Li nodded, pointed in one direction and said, "Uncle, you only need to walk for 10 minutes to get there. There are many wild fruits there too." Hearing his words, Zyro Li nodded. Since Li Lingyan was injured the last time they went up the mountain, he has never gone up the mountain again. Now, he can only live on what little food he saved up from last year's harvest and the wild vegetables he foraged daily. Although Li Lingyan and Lu Cheng asked him to come to them when he needed help, Zyro Li was very embarrassed to always bother them with his problem. He caused his friends too much trouble already. He didn't have the nerve to borrow food from them. Therefore, he could only endure his hunger, work harder, and strive for more work points. He patted Dong Li on the shoulder and said, "Thank you, little friend. I will pick some wild fruits for you two later." He raised his head and saw that the sun had set and urged them, "It's getting dark, you should go back." Dong Li and Dong Huang nodded and said, "Goodbye, Uncle." Zyro Li watched them walk back until he could no longer see their backs, and then walked in the direction Dong Li pointed. He carried a bamboo basket on his back, hoping that there would be no wild animals. Otherwise, he might lose his life for some wild vegetables. After walking for nearly 10 minutes, he finally saw a few patches of wild vegetables and some wild berries. When he saw those fruits, his eyes lit up and he quickened his pace. He first picked wild berries and some peaches, and then dug wild vegetables. As he was digging for vegetables, he noticed that some of the trees were covered with mushrooms that were densely packed with orange color and resembled flowers. Curious, he walked up to the tree and smelled the mushrooms. The strong smell of fungus made him frown. He didn't know if the mushroom was edible, but he could ask Dr. Zai later. Now he should go find some food and go back. The sun had already set, and Zyro Li did not dare to stay in this place for too long. When he had filled his basket with mushrooms, fruits, and wild vegetables, he quickly left the foothills and walked back to the village. Since there was no sunlight, he could not take a shortcut and had to take a detour. Although it took him longer to get home, it was also safer. When he walked through the hill near the village, he saw Li Lingyan and Li Chenmo chatting in front of a house. When he was still a few meters away from them, Li Lingyan saw him and said, "Zyro Li, have you just come back from the foothills?" Zyro Li walked up to him and said, "Brother Yun, Brother Chenmo, what a coincidence." Li Chenmo glanced at Zyro Li's bamboo basket and saw the chicken of the woods mushrooms, and asked, "Brother Zyro, where did you find these mushrooms?" Zyro Li put the bamboo basket on the ground and said, "I found it near the foot of the mountain. I don't know if this mushroom is edible, and I plan to ask Dr. Zai about it later." Hearing his words, Li Chenmo nodded and said, "This mushroom is edible. It tastes like chicken or crab. You can fry it with some wild vegetables." When Zyro Li and Li Lingyan heard what he said, they both looked at him in surprise. "Third brother, you are so knowledgeable. No wonder so many women fall for you," Li Lingyan said with a teasing smile. "Second brother, please pay attention to your words. If my wife hears what you say, she may misunderstand and I might need to sleep on the floor tonight," Li Chenmo said with a chuckle. Li Lingyan was amused by his words, but Zyro Li was still surprised. He picked up a mushroom and smelled it. The taste is still so strange. Will it taste better when cooked? Seeing his dubious attitude, Li Chenmo said, Brother Zyro, how about you come to my house for a meal today? My wife can cook this mushroom. She can also show you how to handle it. When Li Lingyan heard this, he glanced at his third brother. Everyone said that his third brother was a henpecked husband, but he can easily make decisions for his wife. It seemed that those people were wrong about the relationship between his third brother and his third sister-in-law. Hearing his words, Zyro Li was overjoyed. Although Li Chenmo said that Lu Jiu could cook mushrooms, he was certain that her skills must be very good. If she said she was second, no one would dare to say she was the best in Zai village. So Zyro Li agreed without hesitation. Thank you, Brother Chenmo. After making an agreement, the three of them walked to Li Chenmo's home. When he entered the house, they saw Lu Jiu was picking peaches. Seeing her husband, she smiled and said, Husband, you are back. I will make peach and blueberry pie for you in a while. Li Chenmo walked to his wife, took the bamboo basket from her hand and said, let me help you pick peaches. Okay. Zyro Li was stunned when he saw how Li Chenmo acted so intimate with his wife, as if he and Li Lingyan were invisible. Knowing what he was thinking, Li Lingyan patted him on the shoulder and said, Let's go in. As long as my third sister-in-law is around, my third brother will treat everyone as if they are heir. We'd better wait for them inside. After saying that, he walked to the living room just like he was in his own house. Not knowing what to do, Zyro Li could only follow him. In the living room, Li Lingyan poured them tea and took out snacks from the cabinet. Since returning to the Li family, he often visits his brothers and is already familiar with their house. He knew where they kept their food and drinks, and he never acted politely with them. He ate and drank as if he were at his own home. Although it may seem rude to others, Li Chen's and Li Chenmo are still very satisfied with Li Lingyan's attitude towards them. They feel that this way their relationship will be closer. When they went to Li Lingyan's house, they also did the same and regarded it as their own home. Sending food and drinks to each other has become the norm in their family. While they were enjoying the snacks and drinks in the living room, Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu were chatting while picking peaches. Husband, do you like peaches and blueberry pie, or do you prefer peaches bun more? Hearing his wife's question, Li Chenmo smiled and said, I like everything you made. Lu Jiu was used to his answer and said, Then, I'll make both for you. I'll make some melon buns for you too. After a while, Li Chenmo said, Wife, Zyro Li picked some chicken of the wood mushroom but didn't know how to cook it. I told him you can cook it and invited him to stay for a meal. After speaking, he looked at his wife. Seeing that she agreed readily, he smiled. Lu Jiu didn't know what her husband was thinking and said, Okay, I can also teach him how to do it. Since we have already had dinner, I will prepare some side dishes to go with the fruit wine. You can have some wine with your second brother and Brother Zyro later. Li Chenmo felt happy when he heard his wife's words. He looked towards the living room and saw his second brother and Zyro Li eating snacks and chatting. He leaned over and kissed his wife on the lips and said, Thank you, wife. Suddenly being kissed, Lu Jiu looked at the living room with a blushing face and said, What are you doing? Your brother is here, what if he saw us? Li Chenmo smiled teasingly and said, I just kissed you gently, your lips are not swollen. What are you worrying about? They won't notice. Lu Jiu was speechless by her husband's shameless words and could only stare at him. She pushed him gently and said, You go and accompany your brother, I'll go to the kitchen. All right. After stealing another kiss, Li Chenmo walked to the living room in a good mood, while Lu Jiu went to the kitchen with hastened steps. She took the peaches to the kitchen and put them in her own space, leaving only some for making pies and buns later. Not long after, Zyro Li came over with his bamboo basket. He stood outside the kitchen and said, Sister-in-law, I brought the mushrooms. Hearing this, Lu Jiu came out and said, Brother Zyro, I will teach you how to prepare. Zyro Li nodded and said, Thank you, sister-in-law. To avoid arousing suspicion, the two sat facing each other on a low stool with a large wash basin in the middle. Lu Jiu poured the mushrooms into the basin, then took a clean cloth and began to gently brush away the debris and dirt on the mushrooms. When Zyro Li saw that she didn't wash the mushrooms with water, he asked, Sister-in-law, why don't you wash them with water? Hearing his question, Lu Jiu said, This kind of mushroom absorbs moisture very quickly. If we wash it with water, its texture may be affected. This was the first time Zyro Li heard such things and nodded. Zyro Li remembered the rumors he had heard before. saying that Lu Jiu was illiterate and rude. To this day, no one knows who spread these rumors. Although most of the villagers stopped talking about these rumors after interacting more with her, there were still some who liked to bring them up to ridicule her. Zyro Li glanced at her and started cleaning the mushrooms. He picked a basket of mushrooms, and it took them 20 minutes to clean them all. Afterwards, Lu Jiu went to the kitchen and got 2 knives. She handed one to Zyro Li and said, "After clearing away the dirt and debris, we will trim off the hard or woody parts of the mushroom. Pay attention to the edges and bottom, as these areas may be fibrous." "Oh, okay." Zyro Li nodded and started working according to Lu Jiu's instructions. It took them 10 minutes to trim the mushrooms. When they were done, Lu Jiu filled a basin with water to soak the mushrooms. Seeing her soaking the mushrooms, Zyro Li scratched his head and asked, "Sister-in-law, didn't you say soaking them in water would affect the taste? Why do you need to soak them now?" Lu Jiu pressed the mushrooms into the water and explained, "You don't need to do this step, but it can enhance the flavor. Soaking it in cold water for 30 minutes can remove the bitterness. This mushroom has firm meat and is suitable for various cooking methods. It can be fried, roasted, stir-fried, or used in soups or stews, but be sure to cook them thoroughly and not eat them raw." Just as Zyro Li was trying to remember her explanation, Lu Jiu stood up and said, "All right, we just need to wait for a while before we can start cooking." Zyro Li went to the living room and chatted with the Li brothers, while Lu Jiu went to her bedroom and wrote down a simple chicken of the woods mushroom recipe. In addition to stew, she also prepared chicken of the woods fingers, hash browns, and steak for Zyro Li. With these recipes, even if he eats this mushroom every day, he can rotate the recipe and will not get tired of its taste. After coming out of the bedroom, she handed the recipe to Zyro Li and said, "Brother Zyro, I have written some recipes for this mushroom. I will show you how to cook it later, and you can try it at home later." Zyro Li quickly waved his hand and said, "Sister-in-law, I can't accept these recipes. They are too valuable." Hearing this, Lu Jiu smiled and said, "It's just some simple recipes and not something valuable." Seeing this, Li Chenmo added, "Brother Zyro, since my wife gave it to you, just accept it." Zyro Li was stunned after hearing what they said. He knew that the villagers were eager to learn Lu Jiu's secret recipe, but Lu Jiu was unwilling to teach it to them. Yet today, she gave him not just one, but several recipes. If he could master these recipes, he might be able to make money in the black market. Looking at Li Chenmo and Lu Jiu, his nose felt sore. These people who could only be regarded as acquaintances treated him much better than his family. Taking a deep breath to calm down, he took the recipe and said, "Thank you, sister-in-law. I will never forget your kindness," he added in his heart. Lu Jiu smiled and said, "The mushrooms should be ready now. Let's cook them." They went to the kitchen and Lu Jiu taught him how to make the batter for the fingers recipe. Then she taught him how to make hash browns, steak and stew using the mushroom. Zyro Li stood behind her, watching her cooking with concentration, trying to remember everything that needed attention. He felt that cooking 4 dishes would take a long time, but it only took them about 90 minutes to complete. When they were done, the kitchen was clean and tidy. He looked at the kitchen in surprise. Only when he saw Lu Jiu cooking with his own eyes did he understand the difference between her and the people in the village. There's a lot of theory behind her cooking, and everything is so organized and clean. Even the jars are neatly placed on the shelves. For the staple food, Lu Jiu steamed a few steamed buns, and dinner was complete. When the two brought the dishes to the living room, the aroma that filled the room made Li Lingyun drool. After the food was served, Li Lingyun asked, "Third sister-in-law, is this the strange mushroom?" Lu Jiu nodded and placed a bowl of stew in front of her husband while saying, "It is. Second brother, have a try. This mushroom is so delicious." Li Lingyun nodded and picked up the chopsticks. He picked up the fried mushroom and took a bite. This mushroom has a meaty texture and mild lemon flavor that is reminiscent of chicken and crab. After the first bite, his eyes lit up and he ate faster. Seeing that he was eating quickly, Zyro Li was not to be outdone and began to speed up his pace. While the two of them were eating in a hurry, Lu Jiu and Li Chenmo were eating slowly, savoring the taste carefully. In less than 20 minutes, all the dishes were eaten. Since both Li Lingyun and Zyro Li were eating this mushroom for the first time, Lu Jiu didn't put too much in the dishes in case of allergies. After dinner, there was a knock on the door, followed by Pan Meijia's voice, "Jiu, are you at home?" As soon as Li Lingyun heard his girlfriend's voice, he put down his teacup and said, "I'll open the door." When he opened the door, Li Chenmo, Zyro Li, and Lu Jiu cleared the table. Outside the door, Pan Magia, Zhang Dongmei and Chen Anwen were waiting while holding bamboo baskets. Because Wang Muxiao's stomach was uncomfortable, Mother Lu did not allow her to go with them tonight. Although she felt a little regretful, she knew that her physical condition was not suitable for work, so she rested at home. As soon as the door opened, Pan Magia saw her boyfriend and said in surprise, "Brother Yun, why are you here?" Li Lingyun reached out and took the bamboo basket from his girlfriend's hand and said, "Zyro Li is here to visit. We will go back in a while. I will pick you up later." Hearing his words, Pan Magia was a little unhappy, pouted and said, "You've been too busy recently. It was hard even to see your nose lately." As soon as she finished speaking, Zhang Dongmei and Chen Anwen couldn't help but chuckle. They really couldn't hold back their laughter when they saw her acting like a baby. Hearing their laughter, Pan Magia remembered that there were other people around her and blushed. Li Lingyun glanced at his silly girlfriend before looking at Zhang Dongmei and Chen Anwei and said, "Sister-in-law, please come in." He stepped aside to let them in, closed the door and then took Pan Magia's hand and walked into the house. He deliberately slowed down so that the two of them could talk privately for a while. When Chen Anwen and Zhang Dongmei walked to the backyard, he stopped and said, "Jia, I'm sorry, the pigs were giving birth to the piglets in these past few days. I was too preoccupied with this matter and didn't spend much time with you." Pan Magia was stunned by his words and said, "Brother Yun, I know you have matters to attend to. You don't need to say sorry." Li Lingyun held his girlfriend's hands, looked into her eyes and said seriously, "Jia, this is my first time in love. There are many things I don't know and may not have noticed. So I hope you can tell me if I do anything that makes you sad or angry. I don't want you to keep it all to yourself. You have to tell me so I know what you are thinking or feeling." It wasn't that he didn't want to spend more time with her. However, they had just established their relationship, and every time they were alone together, he found that she was a little uncomfortable. Therefore, he wanted to give her some space to adjust her emotions. He didn't want her to feel pressured when she was with him. Therefore, when he heard her words just now, he was extremely happy. It seemed that he was not the only one who was so much in love and wanted to be with her all the time. Pan Magia was stunned by his words. She didn't expect that her careless words would make her boyfriend think so much. After a while she said, "Brother Yun, I am not dissatisfied with you. After we were together, I was very happy every day. It's just that you seem to be very busy recently, so I..." She bit her lip, paused, and added, "I just worry you will be too tired." Li Lingyun bent down and came closer to her. When their distance was so close, he asked in a low voice, "Jia, I miss you. Do you miss me?" Looking at his handsome face from close range, half of Pan Magia's soul had already left her body, and she nodded absently, "I miss you too. Brother Yun, you are so handsome." After saying that, she grinned like a fool. Her eyes were so bright that Li Lingyun felt that his heart was beating so fast that even his girlfriend could hear it. The two looked at each other, and he slowly lowered his head while observing her reaction. Their faces came closer and closer until their breaths mingled, and he could smell the bamboo fragrance in her hair. He lowered his head and looked at her almond-shaped eyes. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. His eyes were glued to his girlfriend's face, scanning slowly from her eyes to her full red lips. Under the moonlight, the atmosphere is ambiguous. Pan Magia didn't realize the big bad wolf's intention yet. She was fascinated by her boyfriend's eyes and lost in her thoughts until she felt a soft, hot, and wet feeling on her lips. Her eyes widened in surprise when she realized what was happening. Her fists beside her body were clenched tightly as her heartbeat beat crazily, as if it wanted to jump out of her chest. She felt the softness of her boyfriend's lips and the moisture of his tongue licking and biting her lips gently. His hot, heavy breath enveloped her senses, causing her mind to go blank. In an instant, a suspicious blush appeared on her neck and slowly spread to her cheeks and ears. Li Lingyun looked directly into his girlfriend's wide eyes and found that she was so beautiful and adorable. He moved his hands to hug her waist and caressed the back of her neck. He wanted to deepen the kiss, but recalling where they were, he suppressed his desire and thoughts. It was at his third brother's house, and his girlfriend was thin-skinned. If someone found out they were kissing, she might ignore him for weeks or even avoid him. That situation would be disastrous for him. When she was about to suffocate, he parted their lips reluctantly. He was breathing heavily and his voice was hoarse when he said, "Silly girl, take a breath." Pan Magia's soul was still drifting away, and she could only listen to his words blankly. She took several deep breaths to calm down her beating heart while still looking at him with those watery eyes. The tips of her eyes were red, and her lips were slightly swollen from the kiss. This was the first time that Li Lingyun saw that his lovely girlfriend could be so charming and seductive. Seeing his girlfriend's watery eyes and swollen lips, Li Lingyun traced her lips gently with his thumb, smiled, and said, "Jia, if you continue to look at me like this, I won't be able to hold it back anymore." Hearing his words, Pan Meijia's eyes widened with shock, and she pushed him gently before she ran to the backyard. But after a few steps, she stopped, turned around and said, "Brother Yun, I'll bring some snacks for you later. Be careful on the road when you go back." After saying that, she ran to the backyard without looking back, as if she was being chased by a beast. Standing in the front yard, Li Lingyun licked his lips as he looked at his girlfriend's back with eyes full of suppressed desires. He is a mature man, and he understands that his body's reaction is normal, not to mention that the object of his imagination and desire is the woman he loves. For 30 years, he has never had a woman, so he rarely thinks about it, but after being with Pan Meijia, his mind is always full of these thoughts. Even before they got together, he often dreamed of her. He hoped that the summer harvest would come soon so that he could take her back to visit her family and propose to her. The sooner he marries her, the better. It was annoying to see so many bees and butterflies hovering around his girlfriend all the time. He must claim sovereignty as soon as possible. After informing his third brother, Li Lingyun and Zyro Li returned to their houses. After changing his clothes, he walked up the mountain. Besides, some of his pigs are pregnant and it's time to give birth to piglets. The order for meat increases due to the upcoming Kingaming festival. Therefore, he had to go to the pig farm almost every day to help out butchering the pig. In the backyard, Pan Meijia did not dare to enter the kitchen due to her swollen lips, so she decided to wash the dishes and pots first to calm her heartbeat. She knew her face must be red from the heat of the moment. While washing the dishes, her mind returned to the moment she was kissed. When she thought about it, she giggled. Lu Jiu was kneading dough to make situi buns, peach buns, and melon buns by the window. When she heard her friend giggling like a teenager in love, she glanced at her. When she saw her friend's cheeks flushed, she knew her second brother-in-law must have done something bad. When her eyes fell on Pan Meijia's red and swollen lips, she smiled knowingly. "Looks like they've kissed, not bad, second brother," she thought. At this time, she was kneading the dough, with an aunt's smile on her face. She really shipped Mei Yun CP very much, and hoped they would get married as soon as possible. Chen Anwen and Zhang Dongmei were unaware of what Lu Jiu was thinking at all. At this moment, they were busy making thin pancakes, green glutinous rice balls, jujube cakes, 5-color glutinous rice, steamed buns, and mustard rice. Pan Meijia calmed down after washing the dishes and went to the kitchen to help. The day after tomorrow is the Kingaming festival, and people choose to visit Grave the day before to avoid the patrolling officers. Therefore, Beiji would come at midnight to pick up the goods. That's why they came over earlier today and started cooking after dinner. Even using 4 stoves and 2 braziers, it would take them several hours to complete. When they finished, the moon was high in the sky. They all breathed a sigh of relief after they finished and turned off the stove. Zhang Dongmei beat her waist and said, "Fortunately, we managed to finish all the orders before midnight." Chen Anwen wiped her sweat and asked, "Jiu, can your body withstand such work? You kept kneading the dough and didn't take a break at all." Although she felt tired, it was still manageable. Lu Jiu smiled and said, "Sister-in-law, I can handle it. Tomorrow we have to work for another day, then rest for a day before we accept orders again." She knew they needed to take a break at least once a week, so she had told Beiji that they would take a break during the Kingaming festival and would resume taking pre-orders the next day. Hearing her words, they nodded. Although they are happy to make money, they do not want to force themselves to overwork. After all, in addition to selling snacks, they also need to do housework and take care of their families. They cannot afford to get sick. After packing up the goods, there were still some snacks left, so Lu Jiu divided it into 4 parts. The largest portion was for the Lu family and was given to Chen Anwen and Wang Muxiao. The smaller share was for Zhang Dongmei, which was shared equally between Li Chen's family and Father Li. Lu Jiu knew that Pan Meijia would share the snacks with Li Lingyun, so she gave her an equal amount of Zhang Dongmei's portion. The last part is for herself and her husband. When they came out of the backyard, the Li brothers and Lu Han were already waiting for them in the living room. Seeing his exhausted wife, Lu Han quickly took the bamboo basket from Chen Anwen's hand and said, "Wife, thank you for your hard work." Unlike the Li family, the Lu family has not been separated yet. Therefore, all the money they earn will be given to Mother Lu. So when Lu Han saw his wife looking so tired, he was both grateful and heartbroken. Since Wang Muxiao became pregnant, Chen Anwen has done most of the housework. Although Mother Lu helped her with the housework, she was too old to be of much help. So whenever he has free time, Lu Han will help his wife do some housework, but he really didn't have the talent to cook and couldn't help her regarding this matter at all. As for Wang Muxiao and Lu Cheng, they will help whenever they have time. But due to Lu Cheng's work reasons and Wang Muxiao's pregnancy, they couldn't help much. Chen Anwen smiled and said, "Husband, it's already very late. We should go back now." "All right." After saying goodbye, the two left Li Chenmo's home together with Wang Muxiao. As for Li Chen's, he returned with his wife not long after. In the living room, Lu Jiu looked at her friends and smiled. Even though she knew her friend was shy at the moment, she still said, "Magia, are you feeling unwell? Your ears are so red." When Pan Magia heard her words, she was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She stood up suddenly and said, I remember I still have something to deal with. Jiu, brother-in-law, I'm going back first. See you tomorrow." As soon as she finished speaking, she ran towards the door quickly. Li Lingyun was startled by her sudden movement and quickly chased after her after taking the bamboo basket on the table while saying, "Jia, slow down. Watch your steps." When Li Chenmo saw his second brother's actions, he clicked his tongue and said, "Tusk, I didn't expect that one day he would become like this." Lu Jiu glanced at her husband, smiled knowingly and said, "Husband, now I know why people say you and your brother are so similar." After saying that, she walked to the bedroom. Li Chenmo knew that his wife's words meant to say that he was the same as his second brother, as both of them were the type who pamper their wives a lot, but he didn't feel ashamed at all. Instead, he said proudly, "That's how the men of the Li family are. We love our wives and pamper them." When Lu Jiu heard this, she couldn't help laughing and said, Yes, all the men in your Li family are the best." There was not much time before Beiji came over, so Li Chenmo locked the door and went to the bedroom. Lu Jiu took him to her own space, took a shower and went to sleep. After waking up, they freshened up and left the space. Not long after, Beiji knocked on the door of the backyard. "Brother Lei, it's me." While Li Chenmo went to open the door, Lu Jiu went to the kitchen and took out a barrel of fruit wine and a barrel of rice wine from her space, each barrel containing 50 liters of wine. She also took out 10 jars of wild honey, 15 kilograms of Boston lettuce, 20 kilograms of eggplants, half a kilogram of peppers, 10 kilograms of pole beans, 30 kilograms of cucumbers, and 20 kilograms of cherry tomatoes from her space. In addition to wine and vegetables, she also brought out 2 kilograms of peaches, a watermelon weighing 35 kilograms, and 5 cantaloupes weighing about 20 kilograms. Compared with ordinary fruits, her fruits are bigger, sweeter, and juicier. Today, instead of bringing out any sauce, she brought out 5 bottles of maple syrup. When she was done, there were 10 more bamboo baskets in the kitchen. Beiji knew that he had to bring back a lot of things, so in addition to his sister, he also brought 3 men. These people are trustworthy because they are Huzi's comrades in the military. They were discharged from the military because of their injuries, and because of these injuries, they could not earn many work points after they returned to their villages. If it weren't for Huzi, these men and their families would have starved to death. Therefore, their loyalty to Huzi need not be questioned. When Li Chenmo saw them, he frowned and asked, "Are they trustworthy?" Beiji knew what he was worried about and said, "Brother Huzi and I can guarantee that they will not say a word about this matter." When those people saw Li Chenmo, they nodded to him and said, "Brother Lei." Li Chenmo didn't speak, but just nodded to them as a greeting. While he wouldn't comment about their knowledge about his dealings with Huzi, he didn't quite trust them to let them into his house. So only Beiji and his sister Ding Sha were allowed to enter the house to transport the bamboo basket from the kitchen to their tricycle. When they saw the amount of goods transporting, they all looked at Li Chenmo with surprise and admiration in their eyes. In this era, people would choose to grow staples like corn, potatoes, or sweet potatoes instead of vegetables. So when they saw the fresh vegetables and fruits, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. The freshest vegetables they have ever eaten are wild vegetables. They don't know what these vegetables taste like. They just smell the fragrance and know they are delicious. They didn't expect that growing vegetables could be so profitable. They always thought no one would buy it. Why waste limited land on growing vegetables when you can pick them for free? It's better to have a variety of staple foods to fill your stomach. Not knowing what they were thinking, Li Chenmo saw their eager eyes looking at vegetables and fruits and said, "Beiji, wait a minute." When he was about to leave, Beiji heard this. He thought Li Chenmo wanted to add more products, so he readily agreed. Lu Jiu saw her husband coming back and thought Beiji and the others had left and wanted to go to the bedroom to sleep for a while. Seeing that his wife was still in the kitchen, Li Chenmo said, "Wife, I want to give some food for Beiji and the others. Can you give some to them?" Hearing this, Lu Jiu nodded and asked, "Husband, what food do you want to give them?" Li Chenmo thought for a while and said, just give each of them 2 peaches, 2 cucumbers and 10 cherry tomatoes. The portion size of these vegetables is enough for 1 person and can be eaten raw. After hearing what he said, Lu Jiu nodded and took out the fruits and vegetables from her space. Then she put them into a small bamboo basket and handed them to her husband. While waiting outside, one of the men said, Brother Beiji, these fruits and vegetables look really delicious. I wonder if we can buy some back. Not to mention them, even Beiji wants to buy some back. Unfortunately, the quantities given to them each day are fixed and are pre-ordered by customers. If you want to buy it, you must ask Brother Lei and buy it from him. These vegetables have been ordered by our customers. There is no extra at all. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Chenmo came back carrying a small bamboo basket. He handed it to Beiji and said, there are some fruits and vegetables in it. Share it with your comrades equally. Beiji was stunned when he heard what he said, but when he smelled the sweet fragrance of peaches, his eyes suddenly lit up. He took the basket and said with a smile, Thank you, Brother Lei. Li Chenmo nodded at him. Knowing that the peaches and vegetables were for them, Ding Sha and others thanked Li Chenmo and left in a good mood. Little did they notice that they were brought to Li Chenmo's side with only some fruits and vegetables. Looking at their backs, Li Chenmo smiled. Through small gifts, he can ensure the safety of his wife and himself. This is a good deal. After locking the door, he freshened up and went to the bedroom to rest. They slept in the space before, so they didn't feel too tired. They would nap for a few hours and wake up at dawn. Inside the mountain, Li Lingyan was standing near the pig pen, watching the sow give birth to piglets. It had been 3 hours and 12 piglets had been delivered, but the sow still showed signs of labor. A well-fed sow can give birth to 10 to 14 piglets in a litter. Under normal circumstances, a sow can have 2 litters per year, but in rare cases it can have 3 litters. Currently, Li Lingyan's pig farm has 10 sows, which gave birth to the first litter this year. 30 minutes later, 3 more piglets were added to the litter. Everyone was very happy while looking at the little piglets. The last sow finally finished giving birth successfully. After Hu Wusun finished giving instructions to his men, he walked up to Li Lingyan and said, Boss, including today's piglets, there are now a total of 144 piglets. The pig feed you received is indeed of high quality. Li Lingyan nodded and said, Lao Hu, kill a pig and share it with everyone. Everyone has worked hard these days, take the meat back and nourish yourself. Hearing this, everyone cheered and said in unison, Thank you, boss. Although they occasionally buy some meat back for their families to eat, the meat is just leftovers, only 1 or 2 ounces at most. Today, their boss is treating them to a treat, and they can finally bring back several kilograms of fat meat, blood and bones. Everyone who works here puts their lives on the line to fight for a better life for their families. So when they thought that their families would finally have meat to eat, their energy increased and they worked faster than usual. Li Lingyan helped them butcher the pig and then brought back 10 kilograms of meat, 2 kilograms of pig blood and 2 kilograms of pig bones. His father was recovering and needed to nourish his health. So he would give the bones and 5 kilograms of pork belly to his father and eldest brother. He will send 2 kilograms of fatty meat to his third brother, and the remaining meat and pig blood will be given to his girlfriend. Since Pan Magia was the one who cooked for him, he would send some grain, meat, vegetables, oil and seasonings occasionally, which improved the Lu family's impression of him. When the villagers found out, their eyes turned green with envy, but there was nothing they could do. Who told them to give birth to a useless daughter who could not win the heart of a man? When it was daybreak, Li Lingyan gave the meat to his girlfriend and then went to the pig pen. When he arrived, Li Chen's and Li Chenmo had already arrived. Apart from transporting pig manure to the pits on the mountain and disinfecting the pens, there is nothing to do every day. Seeing him coming over, Li Chen's voice was filled with worry. Second brother, did you not sleep well? Look at the dark circles under your eyes. Li Lingyan handed the meat to them and said, I've had enough sleep. Brother, this is for you and our father. Looking at the meat and bones, his eyes flickered as he observed his brothers. His eyes wandered between the second brother and the third brother and asked, Are both of you hiding something from me? As soon as Li Chenmo heard his eldest brother's words, he glanced at his second brother. He had asked his second brother to tell their father and eldest brother about his pig farm, but he refused. Li Chen's is honest, but not stupid. One day he will find out about it. Li Chenmo knew his eldest brother's temper and felt that it was better to confess than to be caught. So he made a signal to his second brother with his eyes. Li Lingyan saw his gaze, cleared his throat and said, Brother, I'll tell you later. We should clean the pen first. Although he was curious, Li Chen's knew that this was not a good place to talk, so he nodded and continued working. He looked at his brothers who were whispering to each other and smiled. He had already made a guess in his mind, but he didn't want to interfere with his brother's business. He asked about it again today because Li Chen's wanted his second brother to open up to the family. He wanted him to know that their family would support him no matter what he did. If he needed any help, they would be there for him and protect him. At first he just asked casually, not expecting that his second brother would really tell him anything. Therefore, when his second brother said that he would tell him later, he was very happy. This is a good sign. Seeing that his brother was in a good mood, Li Chenmo touched his second brother with his elbow and said, "Second brother, you have to tell the truth to father and our brother. Although our brother is very patient, he is terrifying when he is angry." Hearing his words, Li Lingyan remembered the scene when he saw Li Chen's spanking Li Chengshuan when he was 14, and he shivered when he recalled Li Chengshuan's howling at that time. Li Chen's was already 18 years old at that time, and it was really embarrassing for a 14-year-old boy to be spanked by his brother. No wonder Li Chengshuan was afraid of Li Chen's, but hated him so much. He glanced at Li Chenmo and asked, "Third brother, there is a 10-year gap between you and our brother. Has he ever hit you before?" After hearing his question, Li Chenmo thought for a while and said, "Brother has never hit me. At most, he only nags me a few words. Second brother, why do you ask this? Are you afraid of our brother?" Li Lingyan sighed and said, "I've seen him spank Li Chengshuan before, and it looked terrible. He couldn't sit for a whole week." When Li Chenmo heard what he said, he laughed loudly and said, "That's because he scolded our father and mother. Just spanking him has shown our brother's generosity. If it were me, I would break his legs. Unfortunately, I was too young at the time and understood nothing." Li Lingyan nodded and said, "Indeed, you were still a brat at that time. Look at you now, you already have a wife." Hearing his words, Li Chenmo smiled and said proudly, "Second brother, when will you bring your wife back? Your progress is too slow." Li Lingyan rolled his eyes and said, "Third brother, how dare you say that to me? It took you more than 10 years to bring your wife back, didn't it?" After being jabbed by his second brother, Li Chenmo said speechlessly, "Second brother, we shouldn't hurt each other like this. Let's just focus on our work." After reaching an agreement, they stopped talking and started cleaning the pig pen. After they finished cleaning the pig pen, they went to Li Chenmo's house. Seeing them coming, Lu Ju was taken aback. Under normal circumstances, Li Chen's and Li Lingyan would not come in the morning because they still have a lot of things to do at home. "Eldest brother, second brother, you are here. I made a lot for breakfast. Do you want to stay and have a meal before going back?" Being familiar with each other, they did not reject her offer. Li Chen smiled and said, "Third sister-in-law, thank you. I'm sorry for visiting so early and not notifying you in advance." "It's okay, elder brother, there's no need to be so polite to me." After saying that, Lu Ju went to the kitchen to get a basin of hot water and let them wash away the dirt. Although the temperature is high during the day, the water is still cold in the morning. She worried that they would catch colds if they washed up in cold water after sweating a lot. When the Li brothers finished washing the dirt on their faces, hands and feet, Lu Ju had already finished making breakfast. For breakfast today, she made a pot of fish porridge, a basket of crispy stuffed flatbread, a basket of yusheo, a basket of tea egg, a pot of tofu pudding, and a pot of soy milk. Li Chenmo went to the kitchen and helped his wife carry the food to the backyard living room. There are 2 jars of meat sauce with different flavors on the table. After sitting down, Lu Ju poured soy milk for her husband and said, "Husband, drink this to warm your body first." Li Chenmo nodded at her and drank half a cup of soy milk, only to find that his brothers were looking at the food with wide eyes. He looked at them and asked, "Brothers, what's wrong?" After coming back to his senses, Li Chen said, "Third brother, there is so much food. Can we finish it all?" Li Chenmo has a big appetite, and so do his brothers, so these foods are not too much for them. Usually both Li Chen's and Li Lingyan would have 2 pancakes for breakfast. This was the first time they had seen someone prepare so much breakfast. "It should be no problem. If there are any leftovers, my wife and I can have it for lunch," Li Chenmo said. Since he said so, Li Chen's and Li Lingyan said nothing more and started eating. At first, they only planned to eat a bowl of porridge and 2 flatbreads, but after tasting the food, they couldn't help themselves and forgot that they were here to talk, not to eat. Seeing them eating with gusto, Lu Ju felt happy. She peeled some tea eggs for her husband and herself. Today she made sweet tofu pudding. The sweet ginger soup warms the stomach, and the tofu is fragrant and soft. The marble tea eggs are beautiful and delicious. She only had 2 bowls of tofu pudding and 2 tea eggs for breakfast. The rest of the food was eaten by the Li brothers. After breakfast, Li Chenmo said, "Wife, you go have a rest. I'll clear the table and wash the dishes." Knowing that her husband was worried about her health, Lu Jiu did not refuse and went to the bedroom to rest. The Li brothers cleared the table and went to wash the dishes and pots. After that, they sat in the living room and Li Chen's asked, "Second brother, can you tell me now?" Li Lingyan thought for a while and said, "Brother, actually, I didn't buy the meat and bones." Li Chen's was stunned and asked, "Second brother, if you didn't buy it, where did you get the meat? Are you working as a butcher in an illegal pig farm?" After hearing his words, Li Chenmo glanced at his brothers and said with a nod, "Brother, you are half right. Brother, I used to be a butcher, but not anymore. Now I have my own pig farm," Li Lingyan said calmly. When Li Chen's heard his words, his eyes widened in shock. Being a butcher and owning a pig farm are two completely different things. As a butcher, although the work is hard, the salary is high and you can buy meat at a lower price. What's more, if something happens, they can slip away with a low risk of being caught by authorities. But as a pig farm owner, the risk of being shot if caught is almost 100%. This work is very dangerous. In the current chaotic political situation, the government targets illegal pig farms more often, and 8 out of 10 pig farm owners who are caught are shot to death. Thinking of this, Li Chen's frowned and said with worries, "Second brother, you are too bold. Do you know how dangerous this is?" Listening to the worry in his brother's voice, Li Lingyan felt warm in his heart. He nodded and said, "Brother, I know it very well, but you don't have to worry about this. I have contact with the government officers. If the central government investigates and tracks down the illegal pig farms, they will notify me. I have a backup plan for an emergency situation." Seeing that his second brother was so confident, Li Chen sighed and said, "Second brother, I believe you know what you are doing. However, I hope you can tell us if something happens. You have a family and we will support and protect you. Remember, you no longer have to bear everything alone." These words were what he wanted to say to his second brother from the day he returned to the family. Therefore, after finally speaking out, Li Chen stopped nagging Li Lingyan, and the matter passed like this. As for Li Lingyan, after he told his elder brother, he felt inexplicably relieved after listening to his words. He didn't want to tell his brother and father about his pig farm because he knew they were honest, law-abiding citizens. His actions were a crime and could have resulted in a life sentence imprisonment or even the death penalty. He worried they would be disappointed if they found out. But now, instead of showing disappointment, his brother even showed concern and support. This was indeed a surprise to him. He and his third brother looked at each other and saw a smile on his third brother's face and an "I told you so" expression on his face. The three of them chatted for a while and then went out to do their own business. Not long after, the Dong siblings also came. After breakfast, they began to harvest vegetables while Lu Jiu and Li Chenmo planted soybeans, peanuts and carrots in the backyard. Due to them using seeds, fertilizer and water from Lu Jiu's space, the plants grew several times faster than usual. It won't be long before they can harvest them. Since carrots only take 70 to 80 days to mature, she could probably harvest them in 2 or 3 weeks. Thinking of the sweet and crunchy carrots, she felt happy. They can make more money with more types of vegetables. Li Chenmo looked at his wife's smiling face and felt his mood improved significantly. Unlike the villagers who went to the tomb today, the Li family will go tomorrow. Although the central government is very strict, the rules in rural areas are relatively loose. What's more, as long as the brigade is not alarmed, most production team leaders will turn a blind eye to the matter. They also visited their ancestral tomb, so they could not criticize the villagers. After 3 hours of hard work, they finally planted 2 plots of peanuts and 1 plot of soybeans. Carrots were also planted between the peanuts and soybeans. In the front yard, Dong Li and Dong Huang also finished harvesting vegetables. Several huge bamboo baskets filled with vegetables are neatly placed near the woodshed. As they went to the backyard to harvest cherry tomatoes and cucumbers, there was a knock on the front door. "Comrade Li, are you at home?" Hearing the unfamiliar voice, Li Chenmo stopped what he was doing and said, "Wife, I'll go take a look." After saying that, he walked to the front yard while wiping the sweat from his forehead. Opening the gate, he looked at the 2 middle-aged men and asked, "Comrade, who are you looking for?" The middle-aged man was not offended by his straightforward question and said with a smile, "Comrade Li, we are here to hand over your reward on behalf of the brigade secretary." Hearing that he was sent by the brigade secretary, Li Chenmo stepped aside and said, "Comrade, please come in." Entering the house, they saw the thriving vegetable garden and nodded. Fortunately, Dong Li and Dong Huang had just finished harvesting vegetables. so there are only unripen, seasonal fruits and vegetables in the garden. A middle-aged man said with a hint of praise in his voice, "Comrade Lay, you are really good at farming. Maybe you can harvest vegetables in 10 to 15 days. My wife and I planted the vegetables in advance, so it is indeed almost time for the vegetables to mature and ready for harvesting," Li Chenmo said calmly. The middle-aged man didn't know that he was blatantly lying in front of him and his comrade. He nodded repeatedly and said, "You have made a good decision. This way, you can enjoy fresh vegetables in advance." Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story.